making that decision.
No, well, I am, but no. Okay.
Well, hello, welcome. Tonight on Deep Space Nine at 9ish, is Kira a Kardashian? Yes or yes? We are here to break it down. Season 3, Episode 5, Second Skin, is all about the Obsidian Order and the Kardashians and Garrick, and we get some great things. But without further ado, I'm Jeff Mader, here breaking down everything with Deep Space Nine. I'm the host of this program, this establishment that we do on Tuesday nights. But let's bring in our wonderful panel of guest hosts, commentary. We have my brother Dave Mader. Let's bring him in. Say hello, Dave. How are you?
Well, I clicked the button twice. Hey, I'm doing well, Jeff.
Are you ready to talk about Kira Nerys being a Kardashian, and this is all an elaborate ruse to convince you that she's actually Bajoran?
It was, or yeah, to convince her, or she is just Kira Nerys, and this was an elaborate ruse to topple the Kardashian leadership.
I think that was just a convenient way out of the story. Okay, but let's bring in the most important group of people. We have the tag team couple that we have, the Millards. They'll bring them in and their opinions and see what they got. They bounce their ideas together, so they kind of have an advantage. Hello, how are you, Kevin and Ashley?
Good.
We're good.
You have an advantage because this is like a war.
Right.
That's right.
Well, yes. And the Maters are not aligned in this war. Okay. Is there Jaemeel? Is he going to pop in or?
Well, Jaemeel, as far as I know, yeah, he said I'll talk to you tomorrow night. So I expect he will show up, but he is not in the queue at the present.
Okay, so he may pop in to talk about Second Skin. Okay, so we kind of start off with this episode, guys, kind of like a Kira and Dax type of thing, where they're talking about holosuites. Dax is actually originally talking to Quark. And kind of saying, oh, you know how Kira feels about the holosuites. And then Kira shows up and it's like, yeah, they suck. And I think that's kind of like a red herring to the episode, because while you're watching the episode, you're kind of thinking, well, is this a holosuite? Is she being tricked through hologram? She even says it in the episode when she kind of gets abducted. So what did you guys think of that opening scene? Did you feel kind of the same way? Dave, we'll go over to you. Oh, we have Jaemeel. Jaemeel, welcome. Well, let's bring Jaemeel in first before we get into breaking down this episode. Jaemeel
got a haircut, fresh with a new haircut,
fresh cuts, ready to talk about. His mic is not on,
but not with a microphone.
Not wearing a hat.
There it is. Okay. Jaemeel, welcome. We're here talking about Deep Space Nine at 9ish. Is Kira Nerys a Kardashian? Yes or yes?
Yes and yes. Yes and yes. Yeah. I like her more as a Kardashian than I did as a Bajoran. We didn't get any Bajoran BS in this episode. It was fantastic.
Don't you think it would have been way better had they made like Kira actually a Kardashian, like right from the beginning? Because I think the character could have had a lot more fun, like she does in the Mirror Universe version of herself. Like because Kardashians they can get away with being like vindictive and cynical, and they have a great, I don't know, ability for writers to really write them into great positions. Whereas I find the Bajorans, we all lament about the Bajorans. There's a reason they're kind of lame, I mean,
I think I think that the Kardashians are the victimizers and the Bajorans are the victims. And it's,
sure, I get the analogy, Dave, but that doesn't.
It's fun to watch the victims.
But I'm sure the writers liked writing for Garrick a lot more than they did Kira. A lot of the time, because he's so fun. He's like, even in this episode, Garrick is so great. Dave, let's get your first thoughts on the episode. What do you got? Bring the hot fire.
Okay, there's a lot of. This episode is crazy in the way that Deep Space Nine was crazy in its early seasons. Yeah. Just like what happens here, Kira gets kidnapped. Mm-hmm. They have Cisco goes on this rogue mission with the Defiant into Cardassia with they kill an Obsidian Order agent and they just leave. And this is just like all of those events, like Odo's part in it where he throws the bag and it's Odo and they get the jump on these Obsidian Order agents.
Why didn't just throw Odo at him and turn him into blades or something that just cut the people immediately?
Yeah, just the inner workings of how the characters have to save her and all the plot around that. And Garrick is amazing in all of it. But also that like, and this was true the first time I watched this episode. Like, not Nana Visitor is super strong in this episode. This guest star in Lawrence Pressman as this would-be Kardashian father is also great. They're all great. The evil Obsidian Order guy.
Evil.
Well, he is evil. He had the whole plot to. Okay, he's okay. Well, he's not good. He's not a hero. Of our story at least.
Who?
Although Elam Garrick liked him, the guy that Garrick kills at the end. Like,
oh yeah.
Right? Like,
Garrick kills a lot of part. By the way, Garrick kills a lot of people in this show, and it's always like brushed away. It's it's
always shrugged off. Like this time, it's Kira and Odo who like they're like, well, he did do it in self-defense, so we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of just this crazy thing, this whole thing. But I think that the acting and the emotional stuff in the episode is super strong. I think that, you are taking on this journey of like doubt, especially when you see the corpse of Kira and she's looking at it and all of that. You start to go through like this, like how you could just be sort of gaslighted into thinking you're a Kardashian over a couple of days at a Kardashian house. So
I have a disagreement with your statement. One disagreement with what you said.
Okay.
You said that the acting was stellar. Did we not see the opening sequence with Dax? It's you. Right? It was terrible.
Yeah, Dax was bad at the beginning. That is definitely a fact.
The whole cold open is boring.
Yeah.
It's just like dull. It's Kira and they're arguing about parasailing in the holosuite, and it just sets up that they're doing nothing, and then something interrupts it.
Well, I do like when she says you'd live to regret that, and he's like, maybe another time. Like,
well, right before the credits pop up, we see the comet go by the screen. It pans up to the top of the promenade, and we get a view of a weird looking alien. Does that get answered later in the episode? Like,
well, that's the person that kidnapped her. Like,
okay.
This is how they were able to sort of get away with this in the first place. Here, I'll just bring her up here. The character you're referencing.
Yeah,
we only see her like she's here, like kind of creeping on Kira, and then she'll be there sort of for the handoff to the Obsidian Order guy later on.
Right. Okay, I missed that. Okay.
And she gets completely away with this.
Okay, and then Kira talks to a guy that was at this. Well, I've skipped the part. The first part is she talks to a woman who messages her and is like, "Hey, like you were at this camp, for a week, 10 years ago or whatever." And she's like, "I was never there." And this is what kind of starts this whole process of her having to go figure this out. Then she talks to this guy. Okay, this is the conversation. How the hell is this guy like a Cardassian? Is this fake? What is going on with this? Because I feel like
he works for the Cardassians, or he is a Cardassian.
Yeah. Got it. Right? And it maybe it's the same technology as that holo interface that we see later on with Cisco and Garrett. The deep fake.
I just
you think it's a real Bajorn and he's just
remember her properly. He's like,
no, but they say at the end that they couldn't find him, that they think he was an agent, that he was part of the conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
Or he sees that Kira disappeared and he's like, I'm gonna disappear too.
Well, if you're into this theory that Kira actually is a Cardassian, and this was
not necessarily. I'm just saying that she contacts him, and it's like, "Do you remember me?" And he's like, "Yeah, Kira something." And it's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then,
which is the other most ridiculous part of
news, because they don't have much to talk about, and like Major Kira missing, right? And he's like, "I'm gonna bounce," and he goes like this, and he disappears. He goes back in the mountains, in the caves.
By the way, how is Major Kira Nerys not one of the most famous contemporary Bajorans of her time? Like, she's the first officer on the space station. She moved it there. She works directly for the emissary of the prophets. She's directly involved in major political events, including like the events of early season 2 with all of that, the circle and everything. Like, she's a notable figure. And all these people she's talking to are like, "Who are you?" Oh, you got the wrong Kira Nerys. It's a very common name. It's like, Doug Jones or something like that.
Right. It must be some other Kira Nerys, and then they pop up a picture. It's like, oh yeah, it's your hair was longer.
Usually her pictures in the Bajorn Star and the Inquisitor usually has her like this, like, oh, look at me. It's like, oh, I guess I kind of recognize you.
Like, no, you got like I don't even know what the equivalent would be. It would be like a very notable military figure. Like it would be like George Washington in like the American Revolution.
It'd be more like a vice president, you know? Like it'd be more like like John Adams or like a VP that was like, you know, not the main,
because she is like the highest ranking Bajoran on this super notable station. You know, I just think that her name would just be a little bit more famous, but it doesn't seem like she.
But maybe not. Maybe the station is like it's so far away from Bajor. It's a 3-hour space trip. You know, how many people are really thinking about Kira? You know, when she's. It seems like the Bajorans are more concerned about their religion and their Kai and their.
It does protect the Celestial Temple.
True.
So you
think like their whole religion. It's like she works at like the gateway to heaven, Jeff.
The stairway
in like
to
Jerusalem.
The gateway to heaven.
When she works for like Jesus.
Well, she works for
with Jesus.
She's got to figure out crew rotation.
No, the emissary is not God. The emissary is a prophet, so he's more like a Muhammad or like
whatever the analogy is. But she works directly for like this very holy figure,
right?
Too, but she got to figure. I like that line where she's like, "I got to figure out shift rotations with Cisco." Because the relationship's different at this point. That it will like what it is by like season 6 and 7, especially. It's a little bit more professional at this point. You just got to worry about shift rotations. Are they gonna have delta shift?
Yeah, well, that's important. Kevin Ashley, tag team couple. You haven't given your thoughts on the episode, but what are your general thoughts? And did you like it? Did you not like it?
I like it. It's a fun. The first part of the episode, wondering if this is real. Was she actually a Cardassian? Like they play that really well. And then any episode that has Garrick in it and has such a great Garrick in it, I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love all the Garrick stuff, and I love that we start to get a little more nefarious Cisco.
Mm. Yes,
he's leaning into that a little bit.
And he tells Garrick that he's very impressed by his tactics. Which I think Garrick rubs off on Cisco a lot.
Yeah. I love when he says that he would run if you guys are on your own, if the shit hits the fan, and Cisco's just like, I think that's the most honest thing ever said to me.
Yeah,
that was so great.
The first honest thing.
Completely honest thing. Completely honest thing you've ever said to me.
Captain, very astute.
Very astute. Yeah, like I mean, I love Garrick because he's so cheeky. Like even in the conversation that he has with Bashir, he's like, you know, not many people want to buy new clothes because they're constantly worried about the idea of like a Dominion invasion. You know, like they're even setting that up here, and it's like well before we'll even get there. You know.
Yeah.
Jaemeel,
yo,
what do you got?
What I got.
What do you got on this episode? Do you like it? Or do you?
I like this episode. I wish there was a little bit more doubt into like, well, are we sure she isn't a Cardassian? I wish they kind of left that lingering in the air, or even like the subplot of what happens if the father passes away and the daughter comes looking for a trinket in the last moments of her father's life, and you know. She has to pass along what the father had for her. I just feel like there was a little bit more meat on this bone that they should have revisited it and kind of having like a finality to it. A little bit disappointing. But other than that, it's a really good episode.
I agree with. I think that. I think it would have been really great, to have left it ambiguous. Maybe Kira was that replacement Cardassian agent, and we never, they killed the guy before he could ever say what the truth was. That would have been, kind of an interesting way to leave it. Dave, what do you make of this kind of Obsidian Order? We're not getting a lot of that, before this, but now we're kind of getting more into it.
Yeah, we got a little bit more in terms of like their particular role in society. We kind of see like this dynamic between the Central Command in the father character, Legate Gamor, and then Entec, who is the Obsidian Order agent. Just gonna bring them up here quickly on screen, and I like they're very much like the Tal Shiar. It feels like they're kind of like that secret police. They're like the Gestapo, I guess, right?
The CIA, the MI5,
No, but they're more like they're more about like the loyalty of citizens, right? Like, and their role in their totalitarian part of the society. But I don't know. But then like you see like this guy like the father, and he seems like an honorable Cardassian. He's like the most good Cardassian I've ever seen, like in a character written here tonight. And so, but it was like he conspires, he works directly with people like him, and it's hard to really fully reconcile everything about the Cardassian society. What are the good parts of it, or what's their side of the story? We get we get glimpses into that, but I don't think it's ever fully paid off. They feel just like villains, right? Or like a very lost, misguided people at the very least.
I do think that they stress a point a lot with Cardassians that like family comes first. It seems like even before their race or their culture. Yeah, like Gul Dukat constantly makes choices like to protect his daughter, or like make sure his daughter's safe over his job, or certain things like that. They really seem to care about their families first, then their country, then their planet, type thing.
Yeah, they don't have religion. They don't, at least they don't seem to. But yeah, it seems like you're exactly it. It's families first, but then very close second is the state, and then personal, what you want in life, and it's sort of secondary to all of that. And the Garrick tonight was just great, Jeff. Like he like this dialogue where he has to like solve this is right where Odo catches him like looking around the torpedo bay or something. Like, he's like, I caught Garrick around the torpedo bay, and he's like, put him in his quarters. And this is like, and he says like it's very claustrophobic in there. And we'll find out later Garrick is claustrophobic. Right. That this is kind of cruel. What Cisco's like, I'll friggin' show you what's claustrophobic, and like that Cisco's not always a great guy. He also blackmails Garrick into going on this mission at all.
Yeah, and they also yes it is. But they also reinforce the fact multiple times in this episode that the Starfleet characters that we're supposed to love are not to trust Garrick. That Garrick is duplicitous, that he will stab them in the back. The guy at the end, the father or whatever, at the end of the episode literally says that specifically to Kira. So like the really enforcing that point, which is kind of interesting because Garrick, he never becomes a villain in the show, really, ever. There's one episode in Pak Nor where he goes crazy, but that's really it.
If anything, he becomes more likable, more of a hero as time goes on. This is still in his phase where he's still in his selfish phase. He can't trust him. What they say about him what the Legate says here about the end of the episode is kind of true. Like, don't trust him. Like, it's not until he has that episode with the Nabertain and that whole Tal Shiar thing that will come later this season that he sort of turns a corner in terms of like who he's loyal to, and what he's about. But at this point, he's still sort of this like rogue in the middle agent. You could take him or leave him. But just where he goes, like, he has to like diffuse that situation. Like, this is an Alpha Red priority mission, clearance, verification, Yeah. And he gets it all done. And then Cisco's like, whoa, good job. And he goes, it's just something I overheard while hemming someone's trousers.
Which is total bullshit, right? Total bullshit.
Goes back into his line, like,
they got, prior to that, Dave, I think that Garrett was in the hallway because he knew something was up and he needed to get to the bridge.
Probably. Like he seems to know. Yeah. He's always a step ahead of like a lot of the characters.
I like to underscore them not knowing what side he's really on is near the end of the episode when Kira looks at the Legate and she's like, he's on our side, I think. Like,
yeah.
she's not willing to really commit to him being on there.
Yeah, it was a soft vouch. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Yeah, she was like, it's just, I mean, this is like the worst nightmare. This is like a Jewish person, I guess, being dressed up in a Nazi and being convinced they were a Nazi or something. You know, it's like crazy in a way. You know, the experience that Kira and the Nana visitor has to portray to us in this episode, I think, is very difficult. But I think she does a great job.
This would have been more traumatic for her than what she actually, what this episode really gives us. But I think it was about as far as they could probably take it at the time. I think.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the other episode where Troy was turned into a Romulan,
right?
But they don't try to convince her she's a Romulan for too long or at all in that episode. But this is, you know, seeing her in that makeup. But yeah, it's a whole different connection here. Her connection to the Kardashians and how that would just what that would do to you. What kind of
I think my favorite line, though, Dave, in this episode is when Garrick comes in at the end and says, Major, I don't think I've ever seen you look so fetching.
Yeah.
So ravishing.
Or ravishing. Did you say ravishing?
Yeah, it's a great line. You know, and just like her as a Kardashian. Because we don't see a lot of women Kardashians even up to this point. Like there's been a few.
It's true.
But, like,
Yeah.
We have the judge that, you know, O'Brien was, you know, saying, I love my wife.
She's the most wonderful, supportive woman in the world.
I want to hear that one more time.
I love my parents. They were the most lovely people I ever knew.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Hey, okay. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but in Fun Facts, we will talk about how this episode was originally supposed to be O'Brien's episode. And can you imagine that this, you know, was an O'Brien episode where he's convinced that I don't know what they were going to do. Maybe convinced he was Kardashian too. I forget. We'll have to get to that in Fun Facts. But
I said that during the episode. I said Kira's just standing there going, "This isn't supposed to be happening to me.
Right.
I'm not O'Brien."
Yeah. I'm not supposed to wear makeup and be convinced I'm the one thing I hate, you know.
Colomini just like said, "Nope, I'm not doing that."
Colmini's not even in this episode. He must have been like out shooting Con
He's like,
Air.
"Sorry, I got another movie to do."
Yeah, no, he's never there. He comes and goes. Like you'll notice with O'Brien, like he'll do like 4 or 5 episodes in a row, and then he just won't be on the show for a bit. And, you know, like.
Yeah, I never noticed it when I was watching it back then, but now you really like notice it when a character's just not there, and you're like,
yeah.
At the end, because in the Fun Facts you always say like Jake Sisko's not in this episode again.
You know? Yeah, and it's different in DS9 because on TNG, like they're on a ship, so unless like Worf is on Kronos and they dropped him off and they're coming back to get him, everybody has to be on the ship. You know, whereas a space station, it's like, you know, anybody could be anywhere at any time.
A little bit bigger,
you know?
too. I feel like the station, you're not going to run into everybody as often as you might on a ship because the ship's a little more close quarters.
Worf is not in this episode because he has the runs.
Right.
Like I saw this whole video about like they put like 1,000 people on the crew of like on like the top of the Enterprise D, like a simulation of that, right? And it's like they barely cover any part of the saucer. So they're like, if you were actually in the Enterprise D, it's massive for this 1,000 people. You could walk for hours without running into another person.
Yeah,
like,
there's no way it would be 1,000 people, and like in reality, for the size of the ship.
Big?
Yeah, there's no way.
Because how big it is on the inside is very big.
It's a moving city. You know, like that's what it is.
Right. So they always kind of under like showed that because usually when you see like on the Enterprise D and Next Gen, they're always walking by other people.
Imagine the amount of people they would have needed for the ship in Star Trek Into Darkness that the RoboCop uses.
The RoboCop ship?
That ship was ridiculous. That ship was like,
what if
we made it like super huge?
It's like the size of the moon. That ship.
Yeah. What if we made the Enterprise the size of the Death Star? It's just like, get out of here. Like, not accepting that. That's why it negates Star Trek Into Darkness. Sorry.
What else are we going to talk about in this episode? Jaemeel, do you like the relationship we get here with the father here, Gamor and Kira?
Yes, it is the bedrock of this entire episode. You really, even if you don't believe that Kira is a Cardassian, you do totally buy in that he cares for this Ileana, and it's kind of sad that he never gets the reunion that he is so driven to get, so driven to want. And he's a compelling character. He doesn't come across as like weak or pathetic. It's just someone who loves his daughter and wants to see her again. I thought it was fantastic. And was it Nana Visitor?
Nana
Visitor. She played off very well. She wasn't snarky or brattish. Like when this type of episode where it's like I've got to rebel against this, this situation. I was hoping that she wasn't going to be coming across as like a petulant child, and she played it very well, as someone who's kind of coming to grips, and the moments where she's starting to like crack under the pressure of the evidence and the information, the situation. She played it very well. This is a really well crafted episode, minus Dax's reaction, and I felt like they kind of wrapped it up in a bow at the end.
Yeah, the bow at the end is, I get why it occurred. I don't think they would have done it today. That they probably would have made it a little bit more ambiguous. But maybe that was like a choice of like, maybe Nana Visitor was like, I'll do this episode, but you have to make it clear at the end of the episode that I'm a Bajoran. And I wouldn't have been surprised if that was like a stipulation on the episode.
I don't know. I don't think anybody chooses to be a Bajoran.
I think Nana Visitor.
Nana.
Yeah, might.
Is that literally your name?
Well, that's how they always say it when I'm watching interviews, and like that's what Alexander Siddig calls her, and he was married to her, so I think it's correct.
But they're divorced now, so maybe not.
Yeah, so maybe take that.
That's like his dig back. He's like, I'll get everyone calling you Nana when you're actually Nana. Yeah. The stipulation of our divorce is I still get to call you Nana.
What a laugh.
You get an extra Sunday every month with the kid.
Oh, that's so great. So fun to do, Bashir.
Kevin's got him Friday.
You got him Friday? Well, what a laugh. Yeah, I don't know where else to kind of go with this episode other than like, we can talk about this ending here where Kira and Gamora are talking to each other, and they're kind of they talk about Garrick, but they also like talk about like basically they wrap the whole episode in a bow. Like they talk about like, oh yeah, the doctor scanned me, I'm definitely Bajoran, it was all superficial. Boom, that's out the window. 2, I think what you said, Dave, was the thing about the girl that helped kidnap them and the Obsidian Order agent. They kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think there's some other interesting things that get introduced here, including like there's a lot of character development with Garrick, but there's also like this whole idea of the dissident movement that we're starting like a lot. There are a lot of Cardassians that are they are good people. They are right. they do they're not these mustache twirling villains purely that are right. Just like,
but he has to go to political sanctuary to get away. Like he has to go.
Yeah, but that's been true of past other like regimes and governments.
No, for sure.
Agents of change. That there are strong people that might be like targeted by these kinds of things. So, and that whole dissident movement and everything with the Central Command. You also have to consider that the Dominion's in play now. That the shapeshifters, the changelings, they are infiltrating things. They're going to lead to this whole conspiracy that the Klingons are then going to declare war on the Cardassians over a lot of these affairs that are kind of introduced here. So I think that like the bigger narrative of the show, this actually it does have a lot of significance.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they're setting things up very, very well that you don't even kind of realize. Like you said, the claustrophobic thing with Garrick. Like, who would have thought that was being set up in an episode like this? But it was. Anybody else want to jump in here on kind of like...
I got another question. How old is Kira supposed to be?
I think she's like 33. I guess.
Okay, so 10 years ago she would have been 23. Okay,
Yeah.
So all right, fair enough. I was just trying to think like I'm always confused on her relative age and when she was doing what.
I would imagine, the early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. 30.
Did anyone else notice that Billy Burke was in this episode tonight?
No.
Billy Burke.
Who did he play?
He was this Kardashian guy that was going to help Kira escape.
Is he the guy that helped? No, wait. Who's Billy Burke?
Do you know this actor?
Oh, it's Billy Burke. Who's Billy Burke?
Let me show you. This is Billy Burke.
Okay, what's he been in? He kind of looks
in
like
a show called Revolution, which
oh,
is a show
I know who it is. Yeah.
And so he is unrecognizable to me because in that show he is a sarcastic, like Dean Winchester type character.
Yeah,
that is like sort of the leader of this whole other militia group and whatever. And here he was playing like this super soft spoken, like
loyal,
boring, somewhat
but kind of a
Kardashian. Kind of forgettable and completely and how different of an actor this guy will be. Like I don't know, 20 years later, it's kind of amazing to me.
Yeah, well, sometimes though, Dave, I think they're told like, hey, here's your part. You're a very loyal right hand man of this guy. How's he? He can't play it like a sarcastic, he can't, especially if it's written for him that way. Yeah.
And how hard did he really? How much work did he put into developing a character for one scene?
Right. And then he gets shot anyway. So he's like, what's the point?
Yeah. I'm not saying his performance was terrible. It's just so not what I know that actor will become. So
yeah.
Any feelings about the similarities to this episode? You already mentioned the TNG episode that is akin to this. What about in Discovery with Tyler and Volk?
Oh, maybe it's a little bit like that. Yeah. It's also a little bit like the duet episode that we had in season 1, because we have yet again Kira having to feel sympathetic toward a Cardassian in some way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's just for her to grow and become like she never wavers in her like disdain for certain Cardassians and their actions and what they've done. So but that she does come to empathize with them, that there are good Cardassians and bad Cardassians, and that what her anger is sort of more like, I guess, educated and sort of focused and not just sort of against them in general.
It's not a blind hatred. It's not just a blind hatred.
It is sometimes, though. Like, they use a blind hatred with Kira when it's convenient.
Yeah, well, like, there's some lines she'll say, it's a couple seasons from now where she'll be, like, kidnapped by that Cardassian guy who wants to get revenge for one of the bombings she was involved in, right? Where he was like, I was just the guy who cleaned the floors or whatever. And she's like, listen, you invaded our planet. If you were there and I blew you up, you deserved it. I don't care if you were pressing shirts or not. That's not the point. You were all of you were guilty for being there. And I think she's not wrong. Like, she's, but you can disagree with her tactics and her methods, but like it's
it's great metaphors that you don't really see on TV anymore.
Because you remember, as much as this guy was a good guy, he still sanctioned his daughter going undercover to infiltrate the Bajoran resistance so that they could continue to oppress the the Bajorans. So on some level he was involved, and this daughter, if she was a good person, I guess she was good at bone carvings. If she was willing to be part of that too. She was part of that system. Willing participant.
No, for sure.
But he was at one point, but seems to have had a change of heart, I guess.
Yeah, and people can change and become, but it's not to say that. I think that's complicated. I think that, what you feel and how you judge these characters, especially these Cardassian characters, I think is kind of complex. It's
what makes them interesting.
It's what makes them interesting. Less interesting than the Bajorans. They're just the victims, as we were saying. The victimizers, the victims. It's kind of the horror aspect of it, like the train wreck factor, a little bit. Definitely.
Sorry, I'm just reading some fun facts. It's actually quite interesting.
The other question, okay, why were the Bajorans not willing
He's like,
to give?
man, these fun facts are great. I can't wait to tell them.
That's right.
Why did this guy have to go live with the Malanites? Why couldn't he go? Why couldn't Bajor give him sanctuary?
Because Bajor doesn't want Cardassians on their planet.
Even one that's like he's trying to change the system. He's trying to take down like the bad like.
No,
like
but they say that when even what's Goldencott's daughter Zial, when wants to go to Bajor, she's like, I won't be accepted there. And it's like, well, at least half of you will be accepted there. So I don't think Cardassians are exactly welcome on Bajor.
No, but it would serves the interest of the Bajorans for that kind of reform to take place within the Cardassians, because they are this big looming power, and them trying to take back Bajor is not out of the question. Right, so we're becoming.
Well, they even say in this episode. I mean, I know Sisko is trying to blackmail Garrick, but he does say that they've been pressuring them to get rid of Garrick off the station. So they're not happy about having Cardassians around. They can't have him go to Cardassia. There's no way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely a hatred and a stigma against them around the Bajoran and the space station, and
even the orphans, for the most part, aren't really accepted
they do
either.
talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh, okay. So the only other scene I kind of wanted to talk about was the holographic overlay deep fake that they did.
Yes.
Do you guys like that scene when Sisko was a whatever he was, some sort of weird
he was a
alien?
Koberian, I believe.
Koberian freighter captain.
Koberian. I thought that was a really neat thing. I think it was kind of another example of Star Trek predicting the technology of the future. Basically, what is a Snapchat filter or any of these other like things we use now, right?
Exactly.
They just scan our face and put an overlay on it, and this is just a much more sophisticated version of that. I don't know if that was actually Avery Brooks in makeup or
that's
whatever,
also in the fun facts, Dave. We'll get
okay. I won't preempt you.
Would have been awesome if it was just Avery Brooks with like a cat nose and some ears.
Yeah, you would think that's exactly what it would be.
Yeah, like I think it's very interesting, but I think that this was just like, but the other time you're like, okay, let me get this straight. You're like, you're gonna take the Defiant to Cardassia. That's like imagine the reverse, where like the Cardassians are going to take a Cardassian warship to Earth
because Section 31 kidnapped, Zial or something.
But they don't use the cloaking device. It would be more believable if they were using the cloaking device, but they're not using that.
Can't use it without approval.
They're not supposed to use it in the Alpha Quadrant because the Romulans will come take it away.
But they will use it in future seasons and episodes. They kind of like go whatever. We'll care what the.
They got a pre-authorization form.
The Romulans are so far away from DS9. I don't know why they give a shit.
Romulan Seska is not there to go. Nope.
Yeah, Romulan Seska. She becomes a Bajoran who is actually a Cardassian. Isn't that what Seska is?
Yes. Seska. Yeah, exactly. It's another connection. She was pretending to be a Bajoran, but she's actually Cardassian. Maybe she's the daughter.
Maybe she's Ileana. Seska.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Maybe Seska was the Bajoran name.
Yeah,
because she was already Seska, right? When we thought she was Bajoran,
right?
Yes.
If it was a Cardassian name, it would make sense.
It wouldn't be Seska.
Yeah,
no.
It would be Ileana.
Maybe it is Ileana.
Yeah. I say yes or yes. I say yes. Okay.
We just figured it out. We found that guy's daughter.
Yeah. So she died in the Delta Quadrant, never to be seen again.
Yeah, after she married a Kazon.
Yeah, she married a Kazon. Okay, I think we're about ready for some fun facts.
All right.
I don't have the intro, so don't expect it.
Just do a riff on it.
Ready for some fun facts? Double F with Jeff. It's fun facts. I got metaphysical puzzles of IMDb in my brain.
There you go.
Fun facts with Jeff. Ooh.
You have to make that into a theme, and the last line has to be Dave going, I don't know if this is good, Jeff.
I don't know if this is good.
I wanted to show this picture this is the guy from the episode tonight. but his other characters. I don't know if that's your first fun fact, Jeff.
It's not. Okay, so actually, we're going to go back to claustrophobia land. So Nana visitor, who suffers from claustrophobia, greatly disliked wearing the extent of Kardashian makeup for this episode, which required her to arrive for makeup at 1:30 in the morning. After a particularly long 20-hour day of shooting, she simply told the director Les Landau that she had to get out of the makeup and pick up the remaining shots the next day because she was feeling claustrophobic. Landau wanted to continue shooting a while longer. Visitor then began physically removing the claustrophobia-inducing makeup on the set. So she sounds like a dream.
Well, I think but if that happened today,
no, I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing. 20 hours of that makeup. Oh my
20
God.
hours? Yeah,
20
fuck
hours?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think they weren't sensitive to things like claustrophobia and sort of the fear around it, even though they'll do about it an episode a couple seasons later about it. Ironically enough,
they probably did that because of situations like this. I know in What We Left Behind, like also Odo couldn't stand his face mask sometimes, some days.
Yeah.
I'm sure if it if you feel like your skin can't breathe, I mean, that would be really difficult, I think, to deal with.
Look at how much people resist wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Garrick's reference to the Defiance cabins feeling claustrophobic is an early indicator of the character's irrational fear of confined spaces. I don't know if it's irrational, but I mean, all right.
Well, I think that's what a fear is, though. Isn't like a phobia is like usually any kind of irrational fear.
Okay.
Even a fear of heights is kind of a irrational fear.
Okay. Robert Hewitt Wolf's original idea for this episode revolved around O'Brien discovering that he was a deep cover Cardassian operative who had replaced the real O'Brien 20 years previously and had O'Brien's real memories implanted into his own mind. This would have meant that the O'Brien seen throughout TNG and this series was actually a Cardassian spy. Wolf ran into trouble with this idea when he had to try to explain how a Cardassian and a human woman, Keiko, could have had a fully human child, Molly. At this point, Wolf modified the idea so that it revolved around Kira instead of O'Brien. He was like, "Damn
I'm glad that didn't happen. That would have sucked."
Yeah.
I would have been like, "Oh, and he was a Cardassian the whole time," and I get later on what they'll do with Battlestar Galactica, and they were Cylons the whole time. That was cool, and so I get it sort of, but it's
being thrown around the writer room clearly quite a bit here in season 3.
It sounds like they got pretty far along with this idea. They were close to doing it. It sounds like, and
then they were like, "Damn it, Molly's not a Cardassian, so this doesn't make any sense,"
That would have made Disaster a much more interesting episode.
Yeah, we Keiko had an affair with Riker.
It is not a good time.
Yeah, I am Riker.
Really looked like O'Brien.
Yeah, looked like Riker. Riker was heading on Keiko more than O'Brien ever did. Okay, unless it's married to the most wonderful lady in the galaxy day. Okay.
Right.
In the first sequence where the Cardassians contact Sisko while he is using the holofilter, the only shot of the Koberian disguise is stock footage of the original captain from Star Trek DS9 duet, with Avery Brooks lip syncing the first sequence. Norman Large, the original actor in the makeup, was not credited in this episode.
Is that ethical?
I think it's kind of that's kind of mean.
It's archival footage, right? So which episode was that? That was from the
from Duet.
From Duet.
Once again, I don't think that's a coincidence. Because I'm guessing they kind of probably watched that episode before they kind of finished this episode because it has some similar themes with Kira.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're in the same grouping, I would say.
Robert Hewitt Wolf says he was influenced in writing this episode by the work of Philip K. Dick, especially Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the book upon which Blade Runner 1982 was based. And we can remember it for you Wholesale, the short story upon which Total Recall was based.
Yeah, it's kind of like finding out you're somebody else, like that whole thing.
Yeah, it's Total Recall. It's Blade Runner.
Yeah,
which we get a Blade Runner episode. Didn't we already do that one with O'Brien? where he was an
Yeah,
android.
like, that's why I was surprised they were talking about doing that thing with he was a Kardashian
Brian
agent, because they
again.
already did the tribunal in season 2 where there was the other guy who was actually a Kardashian agent. So like he would have, if he had turned out to also be one, it's just weird.
Yeah, they made the right call, I think. Lawrence Pressman, Gamora, appears again in the 5th season, Ties of Blood and Water, and he also is in another episode. He also has the longest IMDb credits I think I've ever seen. He's been in every TV show ever made.
Oh, Lawrence, hold on, I got the pictures. Right, so he was this guy, obviously tonight, but he was also, this is him without the makeup.
I think that's Saint Elsewhere.
That's Doogie Howser.
Oh, is it Doogie Howser?
Here, he'll play this ambassador guy who ends up being, he actually ends up being this guy, this changeling guy that he's the first changeling that Odo kills later on.
Oh, is that who he kills?
Okay.
Okay. Ileana Gamor appears as an antagonist in the DS9 novels Warpath, Fearful Symmetry, and The Soul Key. Those aren't canon, so Dave doesn't count it.
You can read them if you like them, though. It's all good. I approve.
Right.
You read the wikis too.
The final draft.
Memory data.
Read the wikis. Yep. The final draft script is dated August 19th, 1994, a day after my 5th birthday.
Is that what it says in the fun facts?
The day after, Jeff's.
The day after Jeff's 5th birthday. Writer Robert Hewitt Wolf wanted Dr. Bashir to tell Kira at the end that he could not confirm whether she was a Cardassian replacement or the authentic Bajoran Kira. In order to leave Kira permanently unsure of her original identity, he felt this would emphasize that our identity is based on our experiences and who we have been, regardless of one's actual origins. Which I think that's the sentiment that Jaemeel was pointing to earlier in the discussion.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it comes down to it. Like, even if she found out that she actually was this other person, or like she, whatever, how does it change things, right? There was a lot of, I remember, like, also, Jaemeel, remember the whole Peter Parker, Ben Reilly story in Spider-Man in the 90s? And who's the clone?
Started.
Right? But sort of the reaction to finding out you're not who you thought you were, and how, and what you do with that, and how, like, later on in Battlestar Galactica, same thing. Like, back to the same thing where, like, when Saul Tigh figures out he's one of them. Spoilers. It's been out.
Gaius fracking Baltar.
Right? But he goes, whatever I am Saul Tigh now. That's who I want to be. And so there's sort of a choice that any character presented with this conundrum has to make.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the writers considered making Entec a recurring character. However, they decided to have Garrick kill him instead, as this would remind the audience that Garrick is more than capable of taking a life. Coupled with this is Kenny Gamor's warning to Kira at the end: never trust Garrick. The murder of Entec and Gamor's warning were designed by the writers as ways to keep the viewers on their toes as regard to the enigmatic Taylor.
That's the look on a guy's face who's being vaporized. That's what he's like. Oh
no. Yeah, that's I got you, face. Kira says to Gamora at one point that her mother died of malnutrition when she was 3. We later learned that this was a cover story, and she was actually taken as a comfort woman for Gul Dukat.
Right. Well, that does shake Kira later when she finds out that her mother wasn't who she thought she was, right? And sort of the origins behind that. And so it kind of, not about your own identity, but about what your sort of image of a loved one, and sort of how that messes you up. And she never realized, I don't know how well she really reconciles that at the end of that episode.
Not as well as this. She's like, "Oh, I really was a Bajoran. Great.
Good."
I don't have to worry about that anymore.
All the tulip berries you can want.
Thanks, Dr. Bashir. On to the next episode.
Here's a question for you. Like, why did Garrick went out of his way to help them in this episode, though, right?
Yep, he did.
Yeah,
he didn't have to.
He didn't have to, no. But
So,
I think there was a reason. There was a reason Garrick didn't want Cisco and the Cardassian ship that was like going to board them and interrogate them or whatever. There was a reason he didn't want that to go down You know, like he didn't want.
No, but Garrick, before Garrick's blackmailed, like he goes out of his way to like, you know, go to Bashir and try to do something, right? You know, even though Kira doesn't like him, and he doesn't really have to stick his neck out here, but he does. So, you know, as much as like we say, well, yeah, he murders this guy at the end, and there's this warning, you know, like she could say, but you know, he did help us, and he didn't have to. Well, he kind of had to, but
yeah, and like Starfleet characters never kill people. You know,
never kill. But that's the thing, that the morality that's presented at this time of like our heroes is more absolute, right? Like that, you know, and like characters like Garrick, they might do good things, but they're generally sort of gray, ambiguous people is kind of what's always presented. Even Quark is in this category.
Right. No, for sure.
I think Cisco is in that category in later seasons.
Well, progressively more of these Deep Space Nine characters do become like that. But at this point, there's like, it feels like the Starfleet characters are still very virtuous. Deep Space Nine will gradually get darker, which is great.
No, for sure, and they'll make decisions that aren't virtuous. You know, not necessarily that their characters aren't good or they don't try to be good, but I do think they make decisions, you know, in the chain of command a lot of the time that are, you know, not moral. You know.
Well, okay. How many corrupt admirals have we seen?
Sure, or like in the Pale Moonlight when, you know, Cisco has to get the biomimetic gel, and then friggin' Bashir's like, I'm gonna, you know, file an official protest, and I want this in writing. And Cisco's like, I thought you might. Here you go, give me the gel. You know, he's doing an immoral act for another immoral act because he thinks the ends justify the means. You know,
it's just like how he's so anti-Picard, right? Like he's like, you know, Picard would always be. He would never sacrifice his integrity or his morals.
The ends would never justify the means for Picard.
Never.
He would never be a Machiavellian. Cisco definitely. I think even Janeway sometimes she's an ends justify the means person sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Especially at the end. The end game episode is the end justifies the means completely.
Yeah,
Picard kind of stands like apart from the rest of them in this way, I think.
But I love that Admiral, what is it? Admiral Nechayev in one of those episodes dresses him down for sending Hugh back or Hugh.
Yeah. She's like, if you ever have a chance to wipe out the Borg, you're going to do it.
Yeah,
that's your job.
He's ordering
not wrestle with your conscience and your morals, right?
Yeah.
And I think writers were acknowledging that. Picard, for better or worse, is sort of an idealist who sheer effing hubris, as that other admiral in Star Trek Picard would say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. So next episode, guys, we have The Abandoned. That's it for fun facts, by the way. So you can take the double F with Jeff off. But yeah, next we have The Abandoned, episode directed by Avery Brooks. It's basically the episode where they find a baby Jem'Hadar and they have to kind of raise it from captivity.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. But they explain basically what the Jem'Hadar are, and it's a great way to learn just how bloodthirsty they are because they're programmed that way, and the fact that they need to catch yourself white and all that kind of stuff. They really introduce
an Odo episode too. It's a good Odo.
Yeah, Odo's really good in the episode for sure. I'm pretty sure we don't get O'Brien again or Jake or anything like that. So that's what we have next week on Deep Space Nine at 9ish.
You're forgetting something.
What am I forgetting? Dave, ratings. How are we gonna do our ratings? Yes. What do you got? Dave's ratings.
Not mine. It's a group rating. Jeff, you're up first.
I go like a 9.3 on that one. I think it was a good episode.
Wow. I'm not that high, but I'm pretty good. I give this a 7.9.
Whoa, what? I'm giving this one an 8.9.
Even with that Dax scene in the beginning,
you forget it. As the episode goes on, it's like
9, not a 9 or a 9.3.
I'll bump mine up a bit. I'm going up to 8.
What? Peer pressure.
I'm going.
I'm an 8.5.
Okay.
7.5.
Okay, so that averages at a 8.5 for the 5 of us. We are back. Season 3 is back into its trends. Our average for season 3 is back at an 8 after the last week's equilibrium, which was not as well received.
Well, it was a
I wrote it for everyone.
It's a Dax episode. I mean, what do you want?
But like you said, we got the Abandon next week, which we'll see if that, how I don't expect that to be too low. And that's it, Jeff. That's the ratings.
That's it. Dave, what do we have coming up on Live Long and Podcast and Super Mater Bros podcasting? A wide variety of and trivial debates. Our podcast network here.
In our podcast network, we got all kinds of activity. So much that I never leave this chair. There's on Wednesday we have our original series rewatch with our dad Ted, as well as Jody and Adam Woodward. Jody Simpson and Adam Woodward. They don't have the same last name. And tomorrow we're going to be watching the original series episode, The Apple.
That's such
which
a
is
good
about. Yeah, it's a bunch of. It's interesting. We're gonna be watching that tomorrow and talking about that at 7:00 as well. Also here on Live Long and Podcast, we're going to be doing our next edition of Star Trek Radio Theater on Friday night. We're going to be doing actually Deep Space Nine this time, and we're doing statistical probabilities with Kevin Millard playing Dr. Julian Bashir, and Jeff, you're going to be playing the role of Jack.
It's gonna be a lot of Jack.
Yeah, Jack.
What a laugh!
What a laugh!
What a laugh! And then we're also going to have special guest star Alex Blackburn, all the way from Scotland. He's going to be doing this in the middle of the morning for him, as it will be 9 p.m. Eastern, but it will be something like 2 or 3 in the morning Scotland time. So that will be a lot of fun, I think. I get to be Cisco and Kira, so I get to be, both parts.
Does Ashley have any lines as Serena?
No, but she's part of the story, so I felt like this character had to be on the poster, right? Because it's too important of a character not to put on the poster.
She has lines in the next time they bring these characters back.
So, but she also is writing the narration, so
Right.
So what Serena's doing is sort of described by Ashley. So this character belongs to Ashley.
That's true. Okay.
And then on Super Mater Brothers podcasting, Jeff.
I caught up. I watched a couple episodes of your Big Brother Canada.
Are you feeling it?
Yeah, you know what? It's better than I thought. I like how diverse the cast is. That helps a lot because then it's not just like the popular pretty people. Take out all the not those people. So now it seems good. It seems like it's a good cast. It's a good.
There's two sides of the house that are battling back and forth right now into this third week, Jeff. This Big Brother Canada 9 season that we're covering on Super Mater Brothers podcasting. I would fully recommend it. If you're not up to speed, you can watch it on Global Canada. If you're in the States, there are ways to watch this if you're outside of Canada. And we're covering that 3 times a week: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Jeff, you should pop in to say what you thought of an episode if should the need arise. As well,
it's going to be hot.
Tomorrow's episode is going to be hot. We got a veto tomorrow, and then on last week we did our first MCU podcast where we covered WandaVision. Jaemeel, Ashley, and I we talked about that whole season, the series, if it's a one-off or what it will end up being. But we talked about WandaVision. Which was really fantastic. We talked about that for over 2 hours, just breaking everything down we loved about it. So, and then we're going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier when that series wraps in probably 12, 13 weeks or whatever. So, and then Trivial Debates, of course, which is our monthly show. But movies, TV, sports, and more. That's it.
Okay. Well, that's great, Dave. We'll see you next week here on Deep Space Nine at 9ish for Abandoned. But from all of us here from the Live Long and Podcast Network, we say to you, live long and podcast.